What if I told you that trusting God is not revealed when life is easy, but when everything feels uncertain, when your prayers seem delayed, when doors keep closing, when you don't understand what God is doing? That is where real trust is tested. Because anyone can say, I trust God when things are going their way. But real trust shows up when nothing makes sense and you still choose to believe. So the real question is, do you trust God or do you only trust Him when it's comfortable? Because it's one thing to trust God when you can see the path, but can you trust Him when all you see is the unknown? Let's go deeper. The first sign you truly trust God is obedience, even when it doesn't make sense. It's easy to follow God when His direction aligns with what you already want, when it confirms your plans, when it matches your desires, when it feels right. But what about when it doesn't? What about when God asks you to walk away from something you've been holding on to for so long? What about when He asks you to forgive someone who never apologized? What about when He tells you to wait, when everything inside you is ready to move, or to move, when you feel completely unprepared? That's where trust becomes real. Because trust is not just believing that God is good, it's believing that His way is better, even when you don't understand it. In Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. That phrase, lean not on your own understanding, is where many people struggle because we want clarity. We want answers. We want to know why. But God doesn't always give explanations. He asks for trust. And there will be moments when your logic and God's direction don't match. Moments where staying feels easier than leaving. Moments where holding on feels safer than letting go. Moments where fear feels louder than faith. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can rely on what you see, or you can trust what God said. True trust says, God, I don't understand this. I don't see how this will work. I don't know what's ahead, but I choose to follow you anyway. That kind of obedience, it requires surrender. It requires letting go of control, letting go of the need to understand everything, letting go of the illusion that you know what's best. Because at the end of the day, trusting God means accepting that His wisdom is greater than yours. And that's not always easy. But every time you choose obedience, even when it's hard, you're strengthening your trust in Him. The second sign you truly trust God is peace, even in uncertainty. Not the kind of peace that comes when everything is going right, but the kind of peace that remains even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Because real peace is not found in perfect circumstances. It's found in trusting a perfect God. When you truly trust God, you stop trying to control everything. You stop trying to figure out every outcome. You stop exhausting yourself with endless what ifs. What if this fails? What if I make the wrong decision? What if things don't work out? Instead, you begin to rest. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because your heart becomes steady. In Isaiah 26 verse 3 it says, you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Perfect peace doesn't come from having control. It comes from surrendering control. It comes from knowing that even if things don't go your way, they are still going according to God's plan. And that changes everything because now you're not depending on outcomes. You're depending on God. So even when life feels unstable, your heart stays grounded. Even when things fall apart around you, you don't fall apart inside. That doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It doesn't mean you won't have questions. But it means those feelings don't take over your life because your trust in God is greater than your fear of the unknown. And that kind of peace is something the world cannot give. It doesn't make sense to everyone, but to those who trust God, it makes perfect sense. The third sign you truly trust God is that you are willing to wait. And this is where most people struggle because waiting feels like nothing is happening. It feels like silence. It feels like delay. It feels like being forgotten. You pray, but nothing changes. You hope, but nothing moves. You believe, but nothing seems to happen. And in those moments, it's easy to doubt. It's easy to question. It's easy to give up. But waiting is not wasted time. Waiting is where trust grows deeper. Because when you wait on God, you're choosing his timing over your own. You're saying, God, I could rush this. I could force this. I could take control. But I trust that your timing is better than mine. In Psalm 27, verse 14, it says, wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. It repeats it. Wait for the Lord because God knows how hard it is. Waiting is not passive. It's active faith. It's choosing to believe even when you don't see results. It's choosing to stay faithful even when nothing is changing. It's choosing to hold on when everything in you wants to let go. And here's what you need to understand. Just because you don't see God working doesn't mean he isn't. God is always working behind the scenes. He is aligning things you cannot see. He is preparing people you haven't met. He is opening doors you don't even know exist yet. He is protecting you from things you don't even realize could harm you. And sometimes what feels like a delay is actually divine protection. Sometimes God is not saying no. He's saying not yet because he sees what you don't. He knows what you don't. And he understands the timing better than you ever could. And here's the truth. God is more interested in who you're becoming than how fast you're getting there. So if you're in a waiting season right now, don't rush it. Don't try to force what God is still preparing. Don't walk ahead of him because what God has for you will come at the right time. And when it does, you'll realize that the waiting was worth it. So let's bring it all together. You truly trust God when you obey him, even when it doesn't make sense, when you have peace, even in uncertainty, and when you are willing to wait, even when it's hard. Because real trust is not just something you say, it's something you live out every single day, especially in the moments when life feels confusing, especially in the moments when you feel weak, especially in the moments when you don't understand. That's where trust is built, not in comfort, but in uncertainty, not in clarity, but in faith. So if you're in a season right now where things don't make sense, if you're struggling, if you're waiting, if you're questioning, don't walk away from God. Lean into him because maybe this season is not here to break you. It's here to build something deeper in you, a stronger faith, a deeper trust, a closer relationship with him, a trust that isn't based on feelings, but on faith, a trust that isn't based on what you see, but on who God is. And when your trust in God becomes stronger than your fear, that's when everything begins to change. If this message spoke to your heart, take a moment and reflect. Ask yourself honestly, do I really trust God even when I don't understand? And if your answer is, I'm still learning, that's okay. Because trust is not built in a day. It's built in the quiet moments, in the hard decisions, in the waiting seasons, where you choose God again and again and again. If you want to grow deeper in your faith and keep strengthening your trust in God, stay connected. Because sometimes the message you need most comes at the exact moment God knows you're ready to hear it.